Hello, and thank you for checking out this video. My name is Andrew Meixner, and this is Crafty Polymer Projects. For my first YouTube video, I've decided to do a polymer relief of one of my favorite pictures by one of my favorite artists, the incredible Brian Froud. Let's get started, and we'll chat a bit as we go along. I use the term relief loosely. Reliefs are pictures or scenes that are carved or sculpted out of a variety of materials, usually plaster, wood, rock, or clay. I'll leave it to others whether this is a true relief. Let's start with the frame. I'm using a 1 5/8 inch ceiling molding. A kind lady gave me this particular molding that I'll gladly repurpose into frames. Using clear Gorilla Glue, I glue two corners together. Then I take a 10 inch by 12 3/4 inch piece of 1/4 inch square hardware cloth, wire mesh, center it on an 11 by 14 panel type canvas. Then glue the frame together and glue the frame to the canvas, enclosing the wire mesh. Then I drill two small holes, about an 1/8 inch apart, in 5 or 6 areas. I use approximately 26 gauge wire through the holes in the panel. I twist the wire around the mesh and cut off any excess. If I need a very flat surface, I'll actually glue the mesh down slowly, area by area. Just a quick note before we move on. This molding was painted when I got it, so I tested a small piece in the oven at 275 for 45 minutes, and it did just fine. But if you're working with painted or stained wood, you'll want to be very careful. For my first layer of clay, I take about 1 pound and work it to the right consistency, adding Sculpting clay softener if needed. I want the clay soft yet workable. Using a pasta roller on its thickest setting, I roll out and place strips on my canvas, blending the seams and tucking in the edges. I press the clay into the mesh and smooth the surface as flat as possible. The second layer is my backdrop. In this case, it's a solid black background, but in others you may want to blend and mix colors to create the sky or clouds or setting sun, for example. I didn't film applying the second layer. It's done exactly the same way as the first, but I do brush on some softener between the two. Once I have my second layer where I want it, I'll start drawing out the picture with the needlepoint tool. I try to set as many reference points as I can. My son and I bought an Elephas mini projector, which should be here any day now, but for now I'll have to draw it by hand. I mix about a ½ pound of clay into the color I'll be using most, then take half of that and split it again. I lighten up half with a bit of white, and the other half I'll darken with black clay. That way I can adjust the shading more easily as I work. I block out the nose and forehead of the upper left-hand character as my main reference point. Being right-handed, I start from the upper left-hand corner and work across and down. Now that we're started, let me tell you a little bit about myself and this project. My wife and son and I originally come from Central California. I have always loved art. My father painted and sculpted. My brother, he was always good at drawing, painting. My older sister did wonderful pictures using yarn and embroidery. Me, I couldn't draw a straight line, but that didn't stop me from trying. I did little sculpting when I was around 16, but it didn't last long. It wasn't until I was 42, after double carpal tunnel surgery, my doctor suggested working clay as therapy for my hands. My son gave me a block of polymer clay, and that day I made a little sun head and baked it. I enjoyed it so much that I just kept on making things. Sun heads, figurines, necklaces, and reliefs. Alright, well, I'm a few days into this and things are going well. I can only work 3 or 4 hours a day, much more, and it can really get my back and neck to aching. But my main goal is to have fun and enjoy the process. I have very little schooling or training in any form of art, so I'm not trying to teach, I'm only showing how I do my thing and my enthusiasm for polymer clay art. Well, that's enough about me for now, so let's talk about this video's artist and his painting. I'm sure most of you know who Brian Froud is. If not, there's a ton of info online that would be much more informative than I would be. All I can say is that Mr. Froud and his talented wife Wendy are incredible artists who have brought life to a world we could only dream about. My wife Teresa first introduced me to the Frouds. She gave me a book called The Land of Froud for Christmas. I think it was 1983. It literally blew my mind, and I have loved and cherished all of those pictures in that book. But there was one that I kept going back to called The Council. Mr. Froud had created these three ancient forest folk who had been there for so many years that they had become part of the forest, watching as another sunrise comes and goes. For me, I thought it couldn't get any better. Mr. Froud wrote this to go with the picture. Sad, melancholy, slow dwelling at the base of trees between earth and root. They embody the wisdom of the tree. The Council, The Sword of Thrak, unpublished story by the artist, 1976. My son Adam and I looked for anything more on the Sword of Thrak, but we didn't find anything, which just added to the mystery of who these three might be and the story they would tell. A couple of weeks into this, and I'm working on the old lady's eyes, and I'm really struggling. It took 2 attempts on the left eye and 3 on the right. I got so frustrated after ripping out another eye, I had to take a day off. But I came back the next day, put on some mellow jazz, and I got through it. Watching this process in real time would be worse than watching paint dry. Each piece of clay must be the right color or mixture of colors, the right size and shape, then placed. Too little is always better than too much. This painting is a lot of different shades and hues of the same colors. My next relief will have a lot of color. I'll use small pieces of plastic or tile to make little palettes to work different areas of the picture. Here, one small tile will work. I just add more clay as I need it. I baked it at 275 for 45 minutes. Sprayed a coat of primer and painted the frame in metallic oil rubbed bronze. I put a little glaze in the eyes and strung my hanging wire using small eyelet screws. All that took a couple more days, so I think it took 17 days from start to finish, and I'm pretty happy how it turned out for my first video. I'd like to thank Brian Froud. You'll want to check out his books and prints. They are incredible. And I want to thank you. I sure hope you enjoyed watching this. If you did, give me a like and subscribe, and y'all come back and see me again. Bye now.